Okay. I think I got asked so many times. Obviously, there are ideal lenses for bokeh and non-ideal lenses. That's not to say, for example, you can't get decent bokeh out of a wide angle. It's just like you can't squeeze much water out of a stone. I developed a golden rule for bokeh. I had like a waking dream a month ago, and I call it the golden 14 rule of best bokeh. And it's easy to remember this way when it comes to, it's actually said that you remember things if you associate them with something silly or simple, like someone's last name might rhyme with door, and you think of getting hit in the face with a door, and therefore you always remember something. A lot of actually experts in memorization have said that that works extremely well, and I've actually proven that over the years too. I'm especially bad with names. I can't remember anybody's names. Anyway, the golden rule of bokeh. Three of them, and it's 1 and 4. Golden rule of bokeh is shooting at f4 below, but preferably, let's say 1-4 and below. So there's the first 1-4. So obviously, wide aperture, as wide as you could get. You may not want it too wide because the depth of field might be too narrow. But 1-4. Obviously, you may not. This is a 1/8 lens. Obviously, I can't bring this to 1-4, but it's easy to remember. So the first 1-4 is aperture. The second 1-4 is feet. I know I'm in the United States, so I'm not going to use meters, so I'm going to say 14 feet or less. As close as you, however the composition needs to be, but it needs to be in relative quote-unquote close proximity, so say 14 feet or less. So there's the second 1-4. The third 1-4 is the ratio of distance between you and your subject and the subject to the background, right? So the ratio here, let's actually place this. This is the background right here. Camera to subject, there we go. Ratio of 1 from you to your subject to 4 or greater between the subject and the background where the bokeh is actually occurring. That's the second 1-4. So the ratio of 1 in distance to 4. In this case, we're not talking about feet or meters, we're just talking about ratio. So first 1-4, aperture, 1-4, meaning f1-4. Obviously your lens might not have f1, like this lens is a 1/8. It's got dreamy bokeh at f1/8. It's got dreamy bokeh at 2/8 and f2 also. The point is to remember aperture, the first 1-4. Aperture. Second, distance, 14 feet or less. Remember close proximity to your subject. And third is the ratio of distance between yourself and your subject to your background. I hope that makes it simple, and that is the really quick and easy, accurate way to remember it is the 3 14s. In this case it would be 1-4, but it's still 14. It's easy to remember that way. So aperture, distance, 14 or less. Yeah, now we're talking feet, not meters. And thirdly, your ratio of your subject, you to your subject, and your subject to your background. So those are the 3 14s. You always say, make really short, simple videos that are very instructional that will be helpful to my photography. Well, if this does not qualify as one of those videos, then I don't know what the hell does. I did come up with this. I called it the Golden 14 Rule of Best Bokeh, and it is entirely correct. Okay? Any questions on that? I think it's pretty simple. Aperture, distance to subject, and then ratio. Ratio of this to the background. That's not to say a ratio of 1 to 3 won't work, but preferably, ratio 1 to 4. Obviously, different lenses and different focal lengths is not applicable here. I mean, yes, a 300mm 2.8 when you actually back up, say, 60 feet or so. Actually, more than that, a 300mm 2.8. Someone's going to say that in this video. I know someone's going to say that. And I have 3 different 300mm f2.8 lenses. Someone's going to say, well, you don't shoot 14 feet to your subject when you're using a 300mm 2.8. You got to back the hell up. And I know this. I have those lenses. But 99.9% of you out there that are trying to do bokeh don't have a 200 f2 and a 300mm 2.8. Okay? So we're just talking about, because those sort of professionals don't need that golden rule. They know what the hell they're doing, and they know what the hell to place themselves relative to their subject, and subject relative to the bokeh for the background. So there's an exception. So as soon as I make a golden rule, someone's going to point out the exception, so I'm pointing it out right now. There's one exception to it. But anyway, the generality of this golden rule of 14 is applicable in 98% of circumstances as being directly, absolutely relevant to getting the best bokeh. And therefore, it is a golden rule of photography. And I did come up with it. Like it or don't like it, it's accurate. And it's easy to remember. Today, people are too critical. Everything is oh so relative today. Someone will always point out something contrary to whatever it is you're saying. Everybody's a contrarian, actually, today. If I made a statement that poop stinks, there'd be like 100 people telling me that dinosaur poop doesn't stink. It's like, yeah, but we're talking about generally speaking here. People are contrarians. We've got a contrarian society. Actually, grand folks used to call it a smart-ass society. When you'd say something like, you're just being a smart-ass. It's like a generalization is true because it is generally true. And golden rules are not always applicable, but they're applicable almost all the time. And therefore, it is by default in denotation a rule of thumb. Something that is generally and almost always accurate. And there we go. That's my golden rule of best bokeh, the golden 14 rule. I hope you like it. If you do, you can click the link below. Or you can tell me to jump off a cliff or any one of a number of other excellent things that are profane or derogatory. How you like my fireside chat here? I'm going to warm my hands in front of this. Yeah, I know I'm being goofy. It's because I've had not enough caffeine this evening. Thank you. Goodbye. Buenas noches. До свидания. Увидимся and aloha.